For decades, gardeners have been sold the idea that growing lush, productive plants requires chemical fertilizers, imported nutrients, or store-bought compost boosters. Yet the most powerful fertilizer you'll ever use is already sitting in your backyard. Free, renewable, and proven by generations of gardeners and farmers who thrived long before modern agriculture took over. The real secret isn't in fancy packaging or high-tech formulas, it's in how nature recycles life itself. This 2025 backyard biofertilizer trick costs absolutely nothing, yet it outperforms many commercial products by restoring your soil's living network instead of stripping it bare. It's fast, sustainable, and simple enough for anyone to make, even with basic materials you'd normally throw away. Stay with me, because once you learn this process, you'll never look at kitchen waste or garden scraps the same way again. The secret to lasting fertility is biology, not chemicals. What most modern growers don't realize is that soil doesn't need to be fed with nutrients. It needs to be fed with life. You know, every spoonful of healthy soil contains billions of organisms, bacteria, fungi, protozoa and nematodes, all working together to decompose organic matter and release nutrients to plant roots. Synthetic fertilizers, well, they sort of short-circuit that system by offering an instant dose of minerals, but at a long-term cost. Overuse of chemical fertilizers kills microbial life compact soil and leads to dependency, forcing you to add more every year just to maintain the same results. The trick to true soil fertility lies in reactivating that biological engine. And that's where this backyard biofertilizer comes in. Instead of feeding your plants directly, it feeds the soil microbes that sustain your plants. When you create this natural brew, you're cultivating a living ecosystem in liquid form one that accelerates decomposition, strengthens root systems, and boosts nutrient absorption without burning or damaging the soil. It's the same principle used in regenerative agriculture and ancient organic practices, only now adapted for the 2025 home gardener. To make this biofertilizer, you start with 3 things that every household produces for free: kitchen waste garden greens and water. Vegetable scraps, fruit peels, old bread and leftover rice are perfect. These materials are packed with carbohydrates, trace minerals and plant compounds that microbes thrive on. Next, you'll need green material, fresh grass clippings, weeds or leaves. These act as nitrogen boosters and help balance the carbon from the food waste. So, here's how you can build it step by step. First, you'll want to find a large bucket or container with a loose lid, or, even just a cloth cover. Add your kitchen waste and greens in equal parts, then fill the container with enough water to submerge all the materials. Next, stir in a small handful of finished compost or some healthy garden soil. This bit is important as it adds the initial microbial culture that'll multiply during fermentation. And finally, add a spoonful of molasses or any sugary liquid such as fruit juice or even a mashed banana. The sugar serves as a quick energy source that, jump-starts microbial growth. Now, cover the container and let it sit in a shaded spot for about a week, giving it a stir once daily. Within a few days, you'll notice the mixture becoming warm and slightly frothy. Those are signs that microbial activity is in full swing. The smell will shift from sharp and sour to earthy and sweet, signaling that the fermentation is complete. Strain out the solids, and what remains is a potent liquid biofertilizer that can, honestly, transform poor soil into a thriving ecosystem. During the fermentation process, the microbes in your starter feed on the sugars and organic material, multiplying rapidly. As they break down complex compounds into simpler molecules, they create a cocktail of amino acids, enzymes, and natural plant hormones. These substances not only nourish plants, but also stimulate their growth systems, helping roots expand deeper and leaves grow stronger. What makes this biofertilizer different from compost tea or traditional compost is its microbial diversity. The fermentation creates both aerobic and anaerobic microbes, mimicking the complexity of natural soil environments. When you apply it to your garden, these microbes colonize the root zone, forming a living barrier against disease and unlocking nutrients trapped in the soil. The plants begin to feed themselves through this microbe-root relationship, something no store-bought fertilizer can replicate. In my own trials, I applied this liquid to raised beds that had been depleted from years of use. Within weeks, plants that struggled suddenly began producing rich, dark foliage. The soil structure changed noticeably. It became crumbly, moist, and full of earthworms. The best part? I hadn't spent a single cent, and I had turned waste into one of the most powerful natural fertilizers available. Once your biofertilizer is ready, dilute it before using. 1 part fertilizer to 10 parts water is a reliable ratio. Apply it directly to the base of your plants every 1 or 2 weeks. The best times to apply are early morning or evening, when temperatures are cooler and microbial survival is highest. You can also spray it onto leaves as a foliar feed. Plants absorb amino acids and micronutrients directly through their pores, giving a quick boost in vitality. For compost piles, this fertilizer is a game changer. Spraying it over each new layer of compost speeds up decomposition dramatically, converting waste into rich humus in half the usual time. It also works for seed starting. Soak seeds for a few hours in diluted biofertilizer before planting to promote faster germination and stronger seedlings. Over time, your soil will need fewer inputs as its natural cycles restore themselves. If you keep livestock, this same formula can even be used to reduce odor in pens or enhance composted manure. In a time when fertilizer prices keep rising and chemical contamination continues to plague food systems, this backyard trick represents a quiet revolution. It takes agriculture out of the hands of corporations and puts it back where it belongs, in the soil with the grower. Around the world, small farmers are using similar microbial brews, sometimes called effective microorganisms or indigenous microbe solutions, to regenerate land that was once barren. These methods work because they follow nature's pattern of recycling life into life instead of fighting it. In 2025, this approach is gaining renewed importance. Urban gardeners, homesteaders and regenerative farmers are turning back to these low-cost, high-impact solutions to rebuild soil health and resilience. The beauty of this method is that it scales effortlessly, from a single backyard pot to an entire homestead field, and it doesn't rely on expensive equipment or specialized ingredients. You control the process, you control the outcome, and every batch improves your soil's biology further. This 2025 backyard biofertilizer trick isn't a fad. It's a return to the roots of agriculture. When you stop fighting against nature and start working with it, well, the results speak for themselves. You're not just feeding plants, you're rebuilding ecosystems. You're creating soil that sustains life, reduces waste, and breaks dependency on synthetic fertilizers that honestly harm more than they help. Start your first batch this week, even if it's just with kitchen scraps and a bucket of water. Once you see the transformation in your plants, your soil, and your harvest, you'll understand why those who practice this method never go back. If you found this guide valuable, subscribe to Botanical Bliss for more in-depth practical wisdom that helps you grow smarter, live cleaner, and work alongside nature's oldest systems. Share this with other gardeners who are ready to reclaim their soil, because real fertility isn't bought, it's brewed right in your own backyard.